Black Ops 6 is here, and let's just say it's the chlamydia of gaming. Yes, it's a bit of a thrill, like a night out that seems like a cracking idea at the time. You're having a laugh, it's looking sharp, bombastic even, flashing lights and all that, but soon enough, buyer's remorse creeps in like a slow burn. You start wondering why you forked out your hard-earned cash for this chaotic mess, leaving you with that same morning after shame. Maybe I'm just old, but I'm bamboozled at how big media is gushing over this one, with incredibly high scores for what is, let's be honest, a bog-standard campaign that might as well be the pub's watered-down beer. So put the kettle on, grab a cuppa, and let's get into why Black Ops 6 is once again a proper dog's dinner. Quick note that this review is for the campaign only. The multiplayer and zombie mode is not going to be featured today, so the final score isn't summing up the whole game, so please go watch a few other reviews and of course make up your own mind. So let's crack on with the campaign then. Now, I'll give it to them. Black Ops 6 knows how to set the scene with the usual let's blow the bloody doors off opening. You've got that early 90s backdrop with good old blowjob Bill Clinton trying to charm his way into office and America strutting about as the self-appointed world police. It's dripping with style, like they've slathered the whole thing in nostalgia and American goodness. The first mission places you boots down in Kuwait. Oil fields are blazing, bad guys roam the land, and you're there taking down terrorists. Hoorah! As usual, the set pieces are in your face and explosive enough to make your screen shake. It's all very curated, making you feel like you're strapped to a roller coaster with every twist and turn meticulously planned for your pleasure. Sure, it doesn't hit quite as hard as it used to, but it keeps the action rolling and gives you a bit of breathing room before the next big blowout. But here's the kicker: when it comes to the fundamentals, the absolute bread and butter of the game, that's where it all unravels faster than a cheap suit in the rain. It all starts to go tits up with the AI, or should I say lack of it. We're 6 games deep, gaming tech's light years ahead of where it used to be, and yet the enemies still charging like a mob of headless chickens, thick as 2 short planks. It's almost insulting really that they reckon we'll keep lapping it up like a pack of daft punters, but for whatever reason, we do. Look, I ain't ever pretended to be some ex-SAS hardnut, never seen combat outside of the telly and a few gritty documentaries. I'm just an armchair enthusiast like the rest of you lot. Hats off to the real deal out there who actually do the job, but even I've got a sense to know what not to do in a firefight. Black Ops 6 then tries to sell itself as a high-stakes modern military shooter, but the combat, it's more like they've resurrected the spirit of World War I trench warfare. Soldiers just marching to their deaths one by one like they're on some kind of mad field trip. It's hard to take it seriously then when the tactics are about as advanced as the strategy in a pub brawl. Early on you're all geared up, adrenaline pumping as choppers swoop in and drop off a bunch of so-called top-notch mercenaries. Special forces they say, right? Special maybe, forces barely, because the only accurate way to sum up this lot is with one word: shite. These enemies in firefights, they're not about strategy, they're about sprinting headlong into a bullet storm like they're off to a fun fair. You'd think they'd be finding cover, right? Of course not. Instead, they're making a beeline for the dead centre of every choke point, practically lining up for you to mow them down. They even throw in a death animation as if to say, look, realism. Flanking, cover-to-cover moves, forget it. These lot are like toddlers chasing a sweet, and you're the one with the guarded hose. And then there's the shooting from these enemies. No strategy, no coordination. They've got the numbers to surround you, sure, but instead of even a basic cover fire setup, they're darting about like they're lost in space, leaving you in about as much danger as a duck in a kiddie pool. I hear you now, but Reggie, try up in the difficulty, then it's more realistic. Sure, let's do that. All that changes though is now that it takes 1 or 2 bullets to take you down before you magically recover, but the tactics still about as clever as a dead fish. And the best part, after you take out 3 or 4 of these so-called soldiers, there's silence. You can stand there all day, contemplating your life choices, go put the kettle on, watch some election news coverage, and come back to the game until you take a step forward and trigger the next batch of them, as if they're waiting off stage like they're in a bloody pantomime. It's absolute nonsense, start to finish. And the enemy AI only gets worse in the more quiet moments. You could be right in their peripheral vision, waving about like a madman, and they'll do sod all to notice you. You could even pull a right cheeky move and hide behind one of their own, using another soldier as your personal cover. These lads are slower than your nan on her way to the shops, and you can practically be up one bloke's arse, carting heavy artillery and all, and he's none the wiser, oblivious as a stone, the lot of them. One mission actually had a decent setup. It had me sneaking across a roof to get to a lift shaft, so there I am creeping under the gates, practically staring up at the mercenaries' noses, just minding my own business, and they don't have a clue what's going on. And as for the gadgets, pure B-movie material, lads. Now, I get that it's meant to have a bit of a campy vibe, and I'm all for it if that's the goal, but seriously, RC cars strapped with Semtex buzzing about like some lunatic kid's Christmas toy, and these numpties are all looking around like, oi, is that a rat that I hear? Jesus Christ, give me strength. And somehow, this game is getting high scores across the board. Am I blind here or what? As for the story, well, it's a right mixed bag. Pure nonsense, obviously, but when hasn't it been? But I'll admit it had captivated me for a bit, at least early on, that is. As seems to be the trend, you've got your mission hub where you can chat with characters, upgrade your base, and essentially become a super soldier. You're even chucking cash that you find on missions into boosting stuff like your health recovery, because apparently that's how military ops work these days. Dumb as it is, I'll give them props for trying to make the missions feel like more than just a point and shoot routine. Still, there's a part of me scratching my head here at the logic, scrounging around for a couple of $100 to upgrade your base while they're flying you around the world with military gear and paying salaries. It feels a bit like sending a billionaire to the dollar store to save on a packet of chips. But hey, let's not spoil the fun. The story, though, without giving away too much, eventually dives so far into the land of ridiculous that you're left wondering if the writers were actually pulling a prank. The Last of Us is more realistic next to this madhouse, and don't get me started on the characters. It's like they took every alpha male stereotype, shoved them into one game and called it a day. Not a likeable soul in sight, all strutting around like they've got something to prove. The worst of the lot has to be this character here called Woods. Poor bloke's stuck in a wheelchair, but they've written him like he's got a cucumber lodged up his arsehole with no way to get it out. He's always seething, bitter as a lemon in a vinegar bath, and let's just say the acting doesn't help. Script's about as sharp as a butter knife, leaving you with a character so grating you're half tempted to wheel the bugger off the balcony. Maybe I'm just getting old, maybe I'm asking for too much these days, but think back to when Call of Duty first made its mark. It had that sharp arcade vibe, sure, but it never took the piss out of itself. The original nailed that balance, D-Day landings that felt raw, real and intense, drama cranked up to the max, gripping you right from the off. Now Black Ops has always been the offbeat sibling, and I love it for that. Stealthier missions, a bit of cloak and dagger work here and there. Black Ops 6 has these moments, little glimmers that take you back to the glory days, but honestly, Call of Duty's veered off in a direction that's so far gone you'd be hard pressed to call it a military shooter or even a nod to special forces. It's ironic really, because now Black Ops feels closer to Fortnite than the good old Modern Warfare days, splashy, flashy, with all the subtlety of a carnival parade. You've got to wonder, how did it go from gripping us with gritty dramatic realism to something that feels like a Saturday night arcade free-for-all? Graphically, I've got no complaints here, lads and lasses. As usual, it's a visual spectacle. It's stunning in all the right ways, and it runs as smooth as a pint on a Friday night. Now, there's no ray tracing yet, which I'd love to see, as I'm curious in how they'd handle that sort of lighting, but what they've got is already cracking, especially in HDR, where those contrasts really pop. Dark shadows blown away by blazing oil fields and neon bright maps that'll have your retinas dancing. Animations are top notch as well, movements snappy and responsive, no fuss, just how you'd want it. The guns look mint, beautifully modelled, and the level designs laid out smartly. And as I said before, those Hollywood style sequences keep you glued, even if you're mostly along for the ride. I just love that art style to get a bit more grittier, a bit darker, you know. Right now, it's like Black Ops is still stuck in the Pierce Brosnan days, and it needs a swift kick up the arsehole into the Daniel Craig era. But all that said and done, no complaints from me here. As for sound, I'm of two minds. First, let's talk about the good stuff. The sound design itself is proper treat. Rich, immersive, like they've crafted a whole tapestry of noises just to tickle your eardrums. Every bullet has its own zing, footsteps echo down halls, explosions shake your very core, soldiers dying, screams can be heard from afar, and vehicles roaring by, and NPCs having a natter. It's all there, creating a proper soundscape that keeps you hooked. The musical score's spot on too, giving it that high production feel that we've come to expect from a title like Black Ops 6. But when playing this, I continually ask myself, where's the bass? I even reinstalled the last Call of Duty to make sure that my ears weren't having me on, and sure enough, my eardrums were rattling with every explosion and bullet echoing down the hallway. Here, it's got the snaps but misses the thuds. It just lacks that punch, that oomph. And look, I've never fired one of these guns myself, but I'd imagine they should have a bit more bite than what we're getting here. And then there's the voice acting, which, let's be honest, is a load of old wank. Cheesy delivery, dodgy lines. It's like they've got a school drama club in here instead of pros. And with all the resources at their disposal, they could have nailed this part. Yet here we are with voice acting that sounds more like it's out of a toddler's nativity play. So there you have it then, Call of Duty Black Ops 6. Look, I know I've been a bit harsh, but let's be fair. If all you're after is a bit of dumb fun, then you're in safe hands here. I can't deny it. After a long day, the kids are driving you up the wall, the missus is moaning at you for not putting the bins out, then there's something satisfying about booting up a game, zoning out and shooting at dumb AI against the Hollywood backdrop. It's here that Black Ops 6 absolutely shines, and there's absolutely a place for a game like this, no doubt about it. But to act like Black Ops 6 is some sort of top tier gem, getting the same praise as the likes of Red Dead Redemption 2, God of War, The Last of Us, you have to wonder what bloody planet we're on. It's got shoddy AI, a bonkers story, forgettable gunplay, and an overall experience that just blends into the background of the franchise. It's like the Big Mac of games. The first few bites, proper tasty, giving you that high of greasy goodness, but then you're on the toilet, full of regret, wondering why on earth you handed over your hard-earned cash. Until next time, my lovelies, Reggie out.